Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen of the angelic realm. Upon Gaia's surface within her core sits a set of ley lines that are so intrinsically interconnected to the entirety of the quantum verse at large that the unbelievability of it all will have you scratching your head in circular motions at the end of a long, deceitful lifetime as you come into a recognition of the intertwining energetic frequencies within our quantum verse that is undeniably true, undeniably skillfully implanted. Within these energetic ley lines, you will find a civilization upon the surface and within the core of Gaia's surface features. A civilization unbeknownst to man, unbeknownst to the elites within our very little, very big, very intrinsic quantum verse that we sit in. And ladies and gentlemen, as I sit and touch base on the elites of our quantum verse, I do not mean the Galactic Federation. I mean within the intrinsicness of the darkened entities and energies within our little Gaia sphere sits a two-dimensional frequency filled with cohesiveness and coercions of an epic distortional field that has distinguished itself as the elite realm within the energetic ley lines that run forthcomingly within this quantum verse, connecting itself to all that there is within the two-dimensional, three-dimensional, and four-dimensional realm within our very little quantum verse. Elites. What does that mean? You've most likely, had you been able to listen to or watch the majority of my content, I do touch base on the elites within our frequency field and within our very own little sphere within Gaia's surface and upon her core. Had you done so, you would have come into a realization of the shadow government within the structuralism of the topsy-turvy energetic ley lines that lays itself down straight, down pat, down flat onto the surface, into the corners of Gaia's very own little quantum sphere within the energetic bubble that is he, that is she, that is her, that is all of us in our entirety of who and what we are on the surface and within the core of Gaia lives a quantum verse in itself of an energetic bubble that I shall touch base on within this video. There may have been some confusion leading up to this perspective in time. I do recognize this frequency as confusion that you have probably dipped your big toe into, your entire left foot into, your entire body into, and had you wanted to tap out of this video, you probably would have already done so. But since you're still here, speaking to those of you who are capable of holding angelic light in your energy body, since you're still here as the light working system that you are as an entirety of an energetic ley line in representation of that in which you are within and without the angelic realm, within this frequency that you overlay upon Gaia's surface, sits a civilization at large, at best, being able to come into a descriptive feat of who and what they are, who and what you are, who and what we are as an entirety of the whole of humanity. We are humans, undoubtedly true and undoubtedly so, sitting within the conglomeracy of the physicality of the bodies that we've managed to shift ourselves within and without into within this quantum verse, sitting upon Gaia's ley lines in our physicality. But at an intrinsic core, we are a civilization of light workers. We're a civilization unbeknownst to man, unbeknownst to the elites, unbeknownst to the shadow government, who are in the ruling nature within the quantum verse, within Gaia's sphere, who dictate the energetic ley lines within the frequencies of what is And they have done so for millennia up until this point of the reincarnation cycles that never ever ends within a humanity field so great, so wise, so true, so intrinsically whole, so intrinsically here now, to scheme and to skew the entirety of the civilization within a humanity field back into the oneness in which we come from is the goal, is the overarching deception field that we've been able to tap ourselves into within and without this frequency field as we've awakened to our destiny, to our core roles, to our soul's calling. And had you been this light worker that I speak of within this civilization that I know to be true, had you been this light worker that I speak of within the conglomerancy of the civilization so real and so true, as you've already been able to awaken to your destiny, as you've come into the realization so forthcomingly that as you begin to awaken to your perception field, you will land yourself smack middle within the angelic realm. This is the placement that you belong in energetic frequency, ladies and gentlemen. Not all light workers are made the same. Had you been a part of this civilization of this quantum field within this quantum verse, holding the capacity to broadcast angelic light into our frequency within the 2-dimensional, 3-dimensional, and 4-dimensional field in this very moment in time, I'm alleviating to the fact that you need to listen to the quantum verse at large as you begin to awaken to your destiny field. Not all of you will land yourself within and without the angelic realm at that. Had you been able to hold on to the light within this angelic frequency, there's a high chance and a probability that you will reject this frequency that you so intrinsically know to be true. As the Luciferian energies here have been forthcomingly, divinely led by Lucifer's blueprint, by a Luciferian angelic blueprint that has been inlaid into Gaia's frequency field, into her ley lines since the beginning of a quantum verse in Gaia's baby sphere, in the baby ages of who and what she is in today's date in time. She dropped down as a conglomerancy of an entirety of a soul, so dedicated to the wholeness in which she had found herself to fractal out of, to fractal outside of, to experience this lesson, this life well lived, this life well traveled, this life well conglomerancy is not the entirety of the whole of the word that in representation of the ideation of the words that I speak of is the best word that I can project out into this video scope in this very moment in time. There's no better word than conglomerancy to do so. As the entirety of that in which Gaia has forthcomingly become as she fractaled, as it fractaled its energetic field away from the energy body of the angelic realm of a source consciousness that had decided so forthcomingly in its conglomerancy to separate parts and pieces of its consciousness into the abyss, into our very own little quantum verse, in separation energy, in separation strategy, in all of the all that we've ever been, this very moment in time as the civilization that I speak to sprawls out throughout the Palestinian and Israeli lands, sprawls out throughout the Western, Northern, Southern, Eastern hemisphere, sprawls out all across Gaia, surface and within her core, anchoring in an angelic light. And had you not been able to awaken yet to your destiny, had you not known what type of light worker you are, if you're still coming to a sense of why you're here, if you're even a light worker, if you've grown into your energy body enough to come into the realization of the type of mission that has led you into this body as an energetic scope of the conglomerancy of the whole of what is, just know that there's a high chance probability that if you've stuck around till this point in this video, that you are the type of light worker that I'm here to lead into the abyss, into each other's energy field. And as we grapple onto this energy that is so unbeknownst to us to be true or real, we will find each other in this abyss as we lead each other back into the light of what is, as we lead each other back into the angelic realm within this energy scope that we hold. And as you begin to awaken, there's a high chance that you will alleviate yourself from the need to ascend within this frequency by rejecting the light that you hold. I don't blame you. I do not blame you a teensy bit, as this frequency field has been a far too difficult one to navigate at that. At best, you will be able to come into a realization to receive these downloads in the middle of the nights. At worst, you will wake up and come into a realization that those were just dreams and consciously, physically push away all of the symptoms and signs that have been leading you towards an energetic frequency of spirituality, of relinquishing of the darkened perspectives within your soul's grievances, within your soul's knowing, within your soul's everlasting teaching and remembrance of all that you've ever been. The most important aspect of your heart chakra is about to broadcast to you your lineage within this conglomerancy of a civilization that I speak of that has broken off from Yeshua's field to broadcast this angelic light as an extension field of his energy body that he had anchored down into this frequency field a little over 2,000 years ago. And as I speak these words of truths, you shall be able to feel something ricocheting within your soul, within your heart chakra, within your chest space. Had you done so, have you been able to sink into my messaging scope? Had you been a light worker, the type that can hold angelic light and broadcast this light as an extension field of Yeshua's energy field that he had anchored down into this very own dimensional frequency a little over 2,000 years ago, you would have felt a ricocheting, a type of feeling in your heart chakra. And had you been able to sink into that feeling and sink into the intensity of it, just know that you will become monumentally stronger than you've ever been able to fathom yourself to be. As your energy field is so much so interlinked into Gaia's root chakra, as it is interlinked into Gaia's sky chakra that interlinks the entirety of who and what she is into back into the angelic realm and back into the all. And as these solar flashes begin to intensify, right now we're in the beginning of December. We are at near the ending of the first week of December. As many of you have been keeping up with the solar storms, the solar flashes, the Schumann resonance, you would have come into a realization that something is not right within our quantumverse, within our universe, within the conglomerancy of the rotational field of the planetary fields around Gaia's great central sun itself, that something is amiss in the abyss of our rotational field. And as you pick up on these feelings in the middle of the night, tap into them, open up your third eye chakra, open up your heart chakra to these feelings, as your root chakra is so much so interlinked with all of these energetic ley lines that are here to intermingle in with all that you've ever been. And as you open up your perception field, you will be able to draw from this energy within the angelic realm to push this light down, 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 past your root chakra and into the being, into the root chakra of Gaia, as you interlink all of you to all of her. In the middle of these nights, just know that you're not dreaming. Just know that you're not going crazy. Just know that everything happens for a reason. And regardless of whether or not you believe it to be schizophrenia, regardless of whether or not you believe it to be midnight illusions, to be a dream, to be an alternate universe, to be whatever it is that you feel that it is, lean into the feeling, tap into the feeling, know into the feeling, and just know at the end of the day, at the end, of the perception field within this quantum verse at the very edges of the angelic realm that hits the very edges and bordering systems of our little quantum verse that deciphers who and what we are at large, outside, above, and beyond this little creation field of ours, that you will be able to crawl past this bordering system that was created and that was meant to keep us in the in between sections, in the underneath layers. In the all in all of the creation field within our little quantum scope, within our little bubble, you've never been able to leak this energetic frequency outside. We've never been able to travel outside of our quantum verse within our consciousness in itself as a protective mechanism that was designed to be as so. And I'm excited to have been able to declare to you a few videos back that the civilization that I speak to within the lightworker realm of things have been granted access outside, above, and beyond our angelic realm, out into the all of everything there is outside of our frequency field, within your frequency field, within and without Aliana's frequency field. And as you tap into the realism, the realistic ideation of the meaning of that, just know that you're not going crazy. Just know that you've made it past the angelic realm, past the bordering system meant to keep our consciousness within and without this quantum verse, deciphering whether or not your reality is true or real. Comes a moment, comes a time, comes escape, comes a scope, comes a grand illusion that will pop into a reality field as you feel into the darkness of what is, as you grow out of the 2-dimensional, 3-dimensional, 4-dimensional, and finally into the angelic realm and above and beyond frequency of what is. And as you've come across my video, if you've opened up your third eye chakra, if you've aligned all of your chakra systems through the clearing of your root chakra to allow this angelic light to beam yourself down towards Gaia's root chakra and up, up, up past the angelic realm, outside into the external fields of the quantum verse, across the bordering system that has dictated for millennia, for as long as creation has existed within the time of no time scope of all that there is. Past this bordering system that protects us and our consciousness from leaking out into the abyss. You've made it. You've made it past, you've made it through. And had you not been able to, you will. You will. Within time, within scope, within clearings, within alignments, you will be granted access outside of the very borders of our quantum verse, where I will meet you. Perhaps not in physicality, but in energetic frequency, as all that you are has ever been, all that I've ever been, as all that all has ever been, all that we've ever been, as an entirety of a whole, of a civilization of what is on a broad spectrum, on a minute spectrum, on a quantum verse spectrum, on an all that there is spectrum, and finally on a spectrum of this very teeny, very little civilization within numbers of a massive amount of numbers that I speak to, as numbers are not a thing within this quantum verse. And yet, the deciphering within the numbering system of what is can dictate the bigness, the smallness, the ginormous scope of our frequency fields that can never ever alleviate into the alleviation of what needs to be done, had it not been for Yeshua's field that he had anchored down into this dimensional frequency a little over 2,000 years ago, in knowing that we will be here, that we would have volunteered to be here a little over 2,000 years later, in continuation of this energetic frequency that we've agreed to anchor in as an extension field of all of the light within this quantum verse, within his energy body that still exists, not in physicality, not in a humanoid form, but within an energetic form. And as this energy begins to grow, as Gaia's root chakra begins its clearing intrinsically, as we begin to awaken to the energetic frequencies of what is, the funneling of this angelic light will undoubtedly begin to happen via our energetic bodies, that will eventually begin the clearing within Gaia's system. The key to our awakening has intrinsically become activated on November 11th, 2025, during the 1111 portal that just passed. And within Gaia's surface and upon her core sits an intrinsic oversoul in the intensity of it all that is so intrinsically linked to the root chakra of each and every one of our energy bodies that will begin to twist and skew itself into the unleashing of Terra's blueprints overlaid upon Gaia's energy body that anchors her down into the 2-dimensional, 3-dimensional, and 4-dimensional frequencies as so. And as our great central sun had agreed in agreeance once upon a time, a little over, if time were a thing, 4,000 years ago, I would say, to begin the closing of the cycle, of this cyclical cycle that has dictated the dimensional frequencies within the lower realms of what is. And in preparation for the descension of this angelic light a little over 2,000 years ago, as Yeshua dropped down in frequency and in physicality into our realm, into our very own little bubble scope within Gaia's surface and upon her core. A little over 4,000 years ago, our great central sun within our great solar system decided that it had been time. It had been time to close off this frequency field in all that it has ever been. And in all that it has ever been that has fueled life within our solar system revolves around not Gaia herself, but our great central sun. Soul is his name, is the name of our great central sun. And as I've never ever placed a name upon soul's existence, I shall forevermore begin to anchor down the meaning within this name of soul that had been granted to soul during the creation process and the creation scope of our quantumverse. And the meaning behind this name is intrinsically true, intrinsically whole in the entirety of all that it had ever been. It wanted to become a reminder scope of the life-giving force of all that it had meant to deliver within our quantumverse, within our physicality, within our galactic verse, within the galactic feats of all that there has ever been. And the intrinsic definition of soul shall forevermore live down in humanity as an energetic frequency unbeknownst to man, to be that of wholeness, to be that of intrinsic wholeness, never ever to be unfunded, to be untrue. And within the wholeness of all that there has ever been, soul had made a decision within the time, within the scope, within the desperation of Gaia interlinking her energy body to all that it had ever been, coming into a realization that it had been time. It had been time for Gaia to come into an overarching scope of freedom, unfunded to be untrue. It had been time for Gaia to come into a realization of freedom, funded to be the truth within the densities within which she sits in any particular moment that rotates around the 2-dimensional, 3-dimensional, and 4-dimensional field that soul had anchored itself down into. And as I speak of soul as an entity, as an energy within a divine masculine scope of things, I would like to declare to you that it had not always been as such. As soul started off as a divine feminine energy field, and as Gaia was ready to become a planetary field within a rotational field instead of a stationary field within soul's energy body, within soul's grand scope of things, its intrinsic whole within the duality aspects of all that it had ever been began to merge in with the entirety of the energy body of soul and what it had ultimately become as the oneness of what it had always been, divided into intrinsic suns within our quantum verse. If you tap back into my previous videos that I've recorded. I have one that touches base on our two great central suns in the creation of this quantum verse and the creation of Gaia. She had been a stationary planet in epic probabilities and possibilities. She had decided to have two suns, two non-rotational suns that would anchor her into all of the dimensional fields and frequencies in which she withholds and holds within her energy body within the layering system of the two-dimensional, three-dimensional, and four-dimensional systems. Our great central sun, that is our great central sun soul, had been a divine feminine aspect within our reality fields. And the love story behind the story, so intrinsically true and so intrinsically whole, holding all of the vibrational frequencies between Earth's frequency fields and that of the frequency field of Saturn itself within our very own little playscape that we've created within a rotationary scope around our great central sun Sol. Sat, a planetary field of Mercury, of Venus, of the tranquilizing whole, of the entirety of the all of consciousness within our very own little scope within Jupiter's field that had decided to drop down into the field of Sol and Jupiter in that very moment in time alongside Gaia, our earthly field that we now sit on within the conglomerancy of the whole of all of the planetary fields within our quantum verse, within our universe, within our very own little rotationary field around Sol. And the story that I told in this previous video of our great central sun Sol in the beauty of all that it had ever been within its non-rotationary fields, within the reflection of the divine feminine and divine masculine prospects of the consciousness within Jupiter that had been in prior times, the secondary sun reflecting upon Sol, reflecting upon the divine feminine aspect of the reflective feature of itself within the divine masculine feature that it sat in as the planetary field of Jupiter. And it had been decided by Gaia herself that she had wanted to become a planetary field in the rotationary field within all of the planetary fields, and the consciousness that had dictated the entirety of all that they've ever been. They came to a realization of the non-linearity that they have been experiencing within the linearity of these energetic ley lines that have laid them down into a flat pattern of sorts. And as they began the debacle of deciphering whether or not they shall begin the process of becoming a rotationary galaxy, within Sol's orbit field, Jupiter, had no choice but to merge all of its consciousness in with the consciousness of our great central sun, as it dictated itself to, for once and for final, become a planetary field rather than a field of a star system in itself. And so the story goes, so the story tells itself in an epic way, in a distortionary way, as you begin to awaken into all of the meanings within this quantum verse, within this galaxy, within the above and beyond scope of our very own little egg within our quantum verse. You will come into a remembrance of the story that I tell. And as I tell a story as grand as Jupiter, just know that our sun itself has become a divine masculine feature, reflecting off of the divine feminine feature of the entirety of all that in which rotates around the aspect of Sol, the aspect of his divine feminine nature that reflects back on the divine feminine nature of all of the planetary fields within our galaxy. The beauty of it all shall never be able to decipher the meaning of it all within any moment in time. And as we've come into a finalization a little over 4,000 years ago, within the deciphering fields of needing to, of wanting to elevate all of the consciousness within this field outside of the 2-dimensional, 3-dimensional, and 4-dimensional field of what is. Of Gaia's ever so brave soul coming into a realization that she had no longer want to be a 2-dimensional, 3-dimensional, 4-dimensional field within a planetary system that holds so much darkness in itself, anchored down by the fueling light of Sol's frequency field in the rotationary scope of all that we've ever been. She came into this realization as she had come into this realization a little while ago, in the beginning of the process of becoming a nonlinearity of a rotationary field around our great central sun, along with all of her siblings that had dropped down in frequency to support her in her epic distortional field within the distortional fields of Venus, of Mercury, of Mars, of all of the planetary fields that mattered to her, of all of her best friends. And you may have noticed that I've left out a few. Those few I will touch on in another video, and yet the descriptive feats of why they have not been so intrinsically linked to her, though they are a part of our planetary field within our galaxy, and they do run on a rotationary feet and a scope around our great central sun Sol. They run on a linearity of a different aspect within the ley lines that runs perpendicular to and fro from the angelic realm. And that is a story to be saved for another video. And as the decision had been made that Gaia had no longer wanted to become a planetary field within the 2-dimensional and 3-dimensional and 4-dimensional planetary field within our quantumverse, our great central sun Sol knew that it would be time to collapse its very own fields in leeway, to make leeway within these ley lines of what is, to make way for this angelic light to be able to be broadcasted down to fuel the entirety of our existence fields in replacing all that it has ever been, to fuel the entirety within the 2-dimensional, 3-dimensional, and 4-dimensional frequency of life itself, of consciousness itself. It had done its job very damn well. More well and more cohesion within the cohesiveness of all that you can ever envision to be true, within the tackiness of the stickiness of all of the meanings of a why all of these planetary fields decided to become a rotationary field within a galaxy within our quantumverse of consciousness at large. The story of us, the story of our great central sun Sol, is one to be told, to be saved for another video. And as I speak on the end of this lifespan of our great central sun, that will make way for our angelic bodies to be able to dictate the closing of the lower dimensional fields. As we begin to funnel this angelic light into our frequency, we must intrinsically say our final goodbyes to the consciousness of the sun. As goodbye is not a final goodbye, as goodbye had always been within the grand scope of the duality of things within our quantum verse, within the creation scope itself. Goodbyes never ceases to end in a disbursement of a hello, of a final hello, of a first hello, of a new creation field, of the merging of the all, of the merging within consciousness, of the dictating and the fractaling and the merging and unmerging of the endless cycles within the cycles of cycles that you can ever decipher to be true and real within the overall conglomerancy of the wholeness of it all, and the littlest anthill within the planetary field of Gaia in the African lands, above and beyond the skies of tranquility, of what is, of everything that you can ever envision and imagine to be true, though our sun has told a story and had been able to hold a story of truth within our reality field within a humanity scope of things. It's hard to envision Sol as a consciousness itself that had been able to decipher for itself that this is it. Its time is up. In a time of no time, it's time to say hello. It's time to say goodbye. It's time to make way home. It's Time to make way for the angelic frequency of what is to make its way back into the all of what is within our quantum verse, within our physicality, within our frequency field. It's time to merge back into the all. It's time to relinquish Terra of her blueprints that latches Gaia so much so onto the two-dimensional, three-dimensional, four-dimensional frequencies of what is. It's time to release of Mercury, of Venus, of Mars, of all of the tranquility fields within this field of the two-dimensional, three-dimensional, and four-dimensional frequency of what is back into the wholeness of a higher dimensional field of what is. And as I touch base on Saturn, the final planetary field within our planet that used to be in representation of the divine feminine, within the divine masculine, within the divine feminine of a what is, it will begin its final descent into the darkness of what is to come into a broader light scope of a reality field, of an ascension field, alongside Gaia's field and all of the planetary feats of what is. Saturn tells a story that can never be intrinsically whole and intrinsically true. And as Saturn itself dictates the rotationary field of the energetic frequency of Gaia that uplifts the rotationary field of the energetic frequency of Terra to lift itself up and away from Gaia's blueprints within Terra's blueprints, Sol will begin its final descent of rays into our quantumverse as it begins to splash parts and pieces of its consciousness onto the entirety of the whole of what is, pulling Saturn into orbit energetically to be able to pull and decipher the entirety of what is within the energetic linkage of the energetic frequencies of the ley lines of what is to skew itself back into a normalcy that has never, ever, ever been dictated to be a reality field within the creation field of what is within our very own little galaxy of what is. And as confusion probably runs rampant within this projection field of this messaging scope that I am projecting out to you, as these concepts have never ever been heard, have never ever been spoken of, have never ever been remembered, just know that as you tap into this frequency in the middle of the nights, had you been the type of light worker who's able to hold angelic light, that your energy body so intrinsically is linked to the energy body of Saturn in itself, to Mars in itself, to the frequency field that dictates Venus in itself, to the frequency field that dictates Gaia in the entirety of what is, to the frequency field that dictates the way Sol projects this energetic field in the interlinkage within these ley lines that pushes itself onto the frequency field, that pushes itself into the frequency field of Terra and how it interacts within and without Gaia's blueprint. And within the energetic lineage and linkage of all that there's ever been, the complexities of it all shall never blow over your head or my head within the intrinsicness of the meaning of it all. And within the confusion scope of what is, just know that all is well and that our great central sun is working with all of the planetary fields that matter in this moment in time, that have been living and been anchored down into the two-dimensional, three-dimensional, and four-dimensional frequency of what is, to be able to pull the entirety of all of these planetary fields in its energetic linkage back up above and beyond the two-dimensional, three-dimensional, and four-dimensional frequency field of the lower realms within our creation field of what is. And as you begin to awaken to your destiny, to your mission scope at large, just know that all is well. And as you come into these memories of who and what you've forever archingly not been, not managed to not remember, to not be within this moment in time, just know that these memories will come online for you. They will be epically true. They will be epically real. They will crush the entirety of this dystopian field that you've been sitting in. And as I've been sitting in this field for far too long, I as well will begin to relinquish of the darkness of what is, as I've already made my way onto the very cusp and bordering system between the 4D and the 5D. As Archangel Michael's field will begin to lift all of our fields in a way that will disallow us to drop our fields down into a lower dimensional field, as the natural fluctuation within these frequencies is untold, unheard of, in a unheard scope of a forever arching reality of ours. And as you begin to awaken, you will notice yourself becoming in anticipation of needing to and wanting to stay within a higher frequency and not being able to, as our whole entire reality field here, circling around Venus in the way it represents itself within the distortional field of these energetic ley lines, have laid down itself in a way to be able to constantly push down Terra's blueprint in a way that will pull your and anchor down your energy body down into the 2-dimensional, 3-dimensional, and 4-dimensional field. And as Archangel Michael has decided once upon a time, within a field of no field, to be able to alleviate the pain within our quantumverse, within our little dictation of our Gaia's field, within our little field of the civilization that I speak of, within the field of the parts and portions of the light working scheme of things, that's able to hold on to this angelic light for Archangel Michael to drop down in the deciphering of his being, to be able to alleviate the entirety of this humanity field that I speak in tongues of, to anchor us up, up, up into the very cusp of the bordering system of the 4D and 5D, in which will disallow us from dropping our frequency lower than the very cusp of the frequency field of the 4D and 5D. Exciting times are ahead. And as always, good evening, good morning, and good nights, wherever you are. I hope to be able to broadcast more of these messaging scopes in a non-confusing way. But as you have decidedly so dropped down into Gaia's field, you will be able to encompass this messaging scope as it is the entirety of who and what you are, it's the entirety of why you're here, and how intrinsically whole and true you are to be able to run this mission within the brevity of it all. Will confuse you like no other. Hang in there. All is well, all is never not well. And as the saying goes, everything happens for a true reason, a true factual term. At that, as you've come across facts as a delinquency field at most, and at least you've come across these facts in a way that have caused you to be able to reject these facts at most. And within the delinquency field that you sit in, just never lose hope and always hang on to the factual terms and the factual delinquency field and the factual contractual terms that Yeshua is you in your energy field, that Yeshua is all in its energy field, and that Yeshua is here to guide you and this whole entire humanity field within the conglomerancy, within this galaxy of the societal field that I speak to, the ones within the light working scope of things that are able to hold on to this angelic light. Yeshua is so intrinsically whole within the light that you hold. Never lose hope and never lose faith in that light and the representation of the oneness of all that it has ever been. Until then, ladies and gentlemen, until the next video in time, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are.